There we go. Hello, hello. Ignore me for a second. Hello, hello. Where is my thing? This is the Audix, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello. All right. How's my volume level here? It's quiet. Quiet. Would help if I were turning the right channel up, I think. There we go. That's better. All right. Whew. Can I rant about driving for a second? Is that okay? I'm going to do it anyways, yeah. No, I had one of those moments this morning where I realized, how many of you learned to drive from parents? Sort of. Let me put it a different way. I went to driver education training as a freshman in high school or sophomore in high school. It was between my freshman and my sophomore year. But for everything that the driver instructor was teaching me, my dad had nuggets of wisdom, right, as to how to interpret what the driver instructor was teaching us. And some of his mantras were, assume that everybody around you is stupid when you're driving, that they're going to do unpredictable things that don't make any sense. And just drive like that and you'll be okay. But he also has very strong opinions, especially around merging and turn signals, which I have inherited. Yeah. Well, for example, his thing is that turn signals are not requests, they're statements of intent, right? So if you're putting your turn signal on, you're not asking to be let into the lane. You're telling the lane next to you that you are going to merge. They'll want to make sure their car isn't there when you do it, Which works, this is the interesting thing. I love kind of like social sciences. That only works if everybody understands that, And this is one of the things that he struggles with, especially in Oregon. He badmouths us Oregon drivers a lot. Because his thing is nobody ever gets up to speed to merge. And at least in his experience, he has had a lot of situations where the person merging didn't get up to traffic speeds and expected everybody else to accommodate their choice, Right, no. Well, and this is his go-to. He's like, they would never survive in Detroit. Right? yeah. Well, they're maybe dyslexic. I don't know. Yeah, right. But so this morning, I came across the Selwood Bridge, and the intersection at Tacoma and 13th, right? Which is one of the, I don't know that there's much they can do about it, but it's one of the more poorly designed intersections in the city, I think. Because you've got On Point right there, you've got New Seasons, there used to be a Starbucks, that's closed now, but there's a bunch of businesses right on those corners there. And that intersection really isn't designed for anybody to make left turns ever. And if you're going westbound, you're not supposed to make left turns at the intersection. But if you're going eastbound, you get a ton of people. But there are 2 lanes. And so the math that everybody's doing as they're pulling up to that stoplight is how long is the line in the left lane, and what are the chances that somebody in there is going to be making a left-hand turn, right? You all know what I'm going through. Yeah, okay. Let me like pat myself. Let me virtue signal a little bit here. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I stay in the left lane until I see a turn signal, but I always leave enough space between the car in front of me so that if I need to move over into the right, I can, okay. Well, this morning, it's Sunday morning. There's not a lot of people on the road. There was a line of 3 cars in the left lane and a TriMet bus in the right lane, okay? Because the TriMet bus had pulled over to let somebody off or take somebody on. So the light turns green. It's Sunday morning. Everybody's just kind of easing off the block. We're not racing to get anywhere. And those 3 cars are going, and the TriMet bus puts its turn signal on because it needs to merge over before that lane ends. The person in front of me saw the bus merging and decided that they were going to try and get in front of the bus. Which, well, especially when you can't go any faster than the car in front of you. And so it created this amazing opportunity where the car and the bus were having a showdown. And the car realized that the bus was not asking permission, it was declaring intent. And the bus has the right of way. So the bus started to move over, they slammed on their brakes. And here's the thing, is that if they had just left room for the bus, traffic would have flowed smoothly, but because of it, everybody had to stop. So, rant over. Also, bikers, people on bikes should use their signals as well too, right? I thought I was going to kill somebody this morning because I had turned right onto 17th, and there's a ton of bikers that come through that way to hop on the trolley trail or whatever it's called now. And this bike is doing like 30 coming off one of the side streets, and I'm like, they're going to come out in front of me. There's no way I'm going to stop in time. Last moment, they swerve onto the sidewalk. I'm like, number 1, declare your intent. Number 2, sidewalk is meant for pedestrians. You're going far too fast. Slow down, stop, because you are a wheeled vehicle. You are required to stop at signaling. Anyways. Yeah. I know. Yeah. Not you. Yeah. 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 Being right and dead is not a good situation to be in. Huh. Yep. Yep. That's right. That's right. Right on red is a privilege, not a requirement. Right. One word of prayer, and thank you to Paul and Andrea. So when I was in seminary, there were 2 dorms. Anybody here have any experience at Luther? Yeah, Paul, of course, yeah. So there were 2 dorms, right? There was Bachman, which was the big dorm. Bachman, yeah, good. Bachman, good German name. Which is where the majority of, we didn't call it juniors, right? We didn't call them freshmen. They were juniors, which is where the majority of the juniors stayed, the new seminarians. And then there was Stub, which is I guess that's German too, isn't it? Stub, yeah, anyways. Which is where I was, which was, I never understood the strategy of it. It felt kind of like overflow, but because of it, the people that were there were all older. I was, with myself and my friend Colin and my friend Dane, who were the only juniors on that in Stub, right? For the guys, the girls were a floor below us, right? Anyways, one of the consequences of that is that the 2 guys that were in the dorm in Stub with me ended up being very close friends of mine, one of which is Colin, who is one of my best buds in the world. He's married to Jenny, who was, they were over at Yale. You guys know, you've seen Colin, you've heard of Colin. She's doing great. Yeah, Jenny came through the surgery wonderfully. She's got a new job, which she loves. She's so she was the campus pastor for Luther Seminary, which, no shade at Luther, is an awful job. Is an awful job, especially during a time when the majority of students are commuters and have been dealing with all the post-COVID stuff. And so she ended up kind of being the person that everybody dumped on, both faculty and students. And so somebody else is in there now, but she's got a new gig at a church in Southeast St. Paul, which is a huge church. She's one of like 4 or 5 pastors. She's like, I don't do anything. Because she went from working 60 hours a week to preaching once a month. She's like, I'm trying to do visitation, but everybody has their pastor that they like to visit, so she feels like she's elbowing in on it. Anyways, Jenny's doing great. The other guy was Dane Skilbred, who is from North Pole, Alaska, which I, being from Michigan, thought was hilarious, because North Pole, Alaska, that's not right, that's not a real name, and of course, Dane is one of the kindest, but he's also one of the funniest people I've ever met, and apparently it runs in the family as well, too. Anyway, so Dane was a very close friend of mine in seminary, and we still occasionally keep in touch. Dane's mom passed away suddenly. Yesterday, was it? Yeah, yesterday. And his dad had already passed away from Parkinson's several years ago, I think before I met him. But so just, the family names. His dad's name was Dan. And then you've got the kids' names are Dave, Dawn, Dane, and Dustin. And then his mom's name was Dee. So keep this Skilbred family in your prayers, Losing moms always stinks, so yeah. Especially right before Christmas. Yeah, especially right before Christmas. So, or the day before Thanksgiving. Amen to that. Let's talk Advent. By the way, here's my plug. Jamie has some wonderful crafts over there. We now have the original sized wreath bases that I was supposed to bring last week, and I did not. So at any point, I would encourage you, if you want something to do with your hands, Jamie will be happy to show you how to make a quick Advent wreath. And Ellis is already over there, scheming and planning her next project. So, not going to force anybody, just throwing it out there. I'm happy to pass out materials as well, too. Advent. So, we talked, yes, please. Well, let me get you a mic, Ellis, if you don't mind. Ellis, are you okay talking into a microphone? Okay.
Let's go with Jamie.
Natural.
Okay, we're going to start right here. Okay, so are you ready to tell? So, who was Jesus' mom?
Mary.
And who was Jesus' dad?
Joseph.
And what happened when they got to the town of Bethlehem?
There was no hotels.
There was no hotels. And where did Mary have baby Jesus?
In the barn.
In the barn. And one more question, you ready? How did all of the people who wanted to come visit baby Jesus, how did they know where to find him?
In the barn.
In the barn, but what led the way?
The star.
The star. What do you say? Do you want to say anything else about? And what did you want to sing? Did you want to sing something for them?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. You know what to sing.
Happy birthday
To you.
to you.
Happy birthday
Happy birthday
to you.
to you.
Happy birthday, baby.
Happy birthday, baby Jesus.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Any more? Okay, you can go. Nice job.
You want to give the microphone back to Pastor Jesse?
You're a natural. Ellis nailed it. So we were, we ended up talking a bunch about Ruth last week, which was great, especially with the bishop here. And I didn't get a chance to mention that, but Ruth is basically like the bishop's favorite book in the Bible. So I was very nervous because I'm like, she probably knows more about it than I do. Plus, it's the bishop, so yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that single white male with no children talking about Ruth, not exactly pulling from personal experience in a lot of those narratives, which is important. And I say that jokingly, but just one of the things that I want to celebrate about our tradition, that we value the voices of both men and women in preaching, speaking, and leading our not just our congregation but our churches. Pretty amazing. So, I'm not single. Married. I meant heterosexual white man. Yeah. I got to tell you though, it has taken a good solid 10 years to stop referring to me as her new boyfriend. and she will less now, but especially in like the first 4 years that we were dating, she would say, "Do you remember when we did X, Y, or Z?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Must have been my other boyfriend." I was like, thanks for really giving me the confidence that I need to feel like I belong in this relationship. Oh boy. Bishop Lori? Wow. No, she went on, yeah. She's way smarter than I am. She went to an Ivy League school for her. Susan met now Bishop Lori when Lori was doing campus ministry at PSU. PSU, yeah. Yes. A few moons ago, yeah. 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 Absolutely. So, any of you ever do anything that you thought you were prepared for and you weren't? Yeah. How about childbearing? How was that experience? I always wonder about this. I mean, not having done the kid thing ourselves. My dad loves to tell stories about when my brother was born. So my brother was born in the car on the way to the hospital. Yeah. And this is where I give him a hard time. September. I had to think about that for way too long. Yeah, end of September in Wisconsin. Yeah, in the back of the brand new 1983 Chevy Blazer. My dad was at the time, he was the manager / maintenance guy for a Lutheran Bible camp in eastern Wisconsin called Waypost. It was a chain of three camps that were all part of the Imago Dei community over there. I don't know if anybody knows eastern Wisconsin at all. Anyways, that's where I went for confirmation camp. We drove 8 hours because I wanted to go to where I was born, number one. But so my dad got home from work and my mom had gone into labor, and mom said, we should probably go to the hospital. My dad asked her, "Do I have time for a shower?" And to be fair, she said yes. So, I mean, which he also reminds us of. So anyways, he got out of the shower, and my grandmother, who was there taking care of me, said to my dad, "You should probably leave like 5 minutes ago." And so he hopped in the car. It was a 30-minute drive from the camp to Wausau General Hospital. About halfway there, my mom said, "I don't think we're going to make it." My dad said, "What do you mean we're not going to make it?" Boom, out pops Sean. And then, the thing is being born not in the hospital, there's all those things that the doctors and nurses are responsible for, number one of which is knowing that the baby is alive and breathing. So they're both panicking, and he asks her, "Is he breathing?" And she's like, "I have no idea, And so all he could think of, because my dad watched and read a lot of Westerns as a kid, he's like, "Hold him up by his ankles and smack him on the butt." So that's what she did. She just went whap, and he started bawling. Well, they still had like 15 minutes to go, so like 5 minutes later, she's like, he's not making any more noise. Well, whap, smacked him again. And that explains my brother's cheery disposition. Yeah, and then of course the irony of it is when they got there, my mom actually ended up having to spend more time in the hospital than she would have if he had been born there, and they had to pay more than if he had been born there. Yeah, even though the hospital didn't really do anything for the whole birth process, but that's the reality of American healthcare. But So, I always think about that when I think about, are you prepared to have kids? They'd already had one. You think that they would have had it figured out, but maybe it made them overconfident. How about you guys? For those of you that have had children, did you feel like you were ready when you had him? Her. Yeah. Did you have all the things? No. Yes. No. Well, cradles, diapers. Yeah. This. Oh, why is that? I'm gonna hand you the mic.
I don't know. Some of you remember David, but no, David's he was ready to have our first child, and I was ready, but when the reality came, he just sat there instead of holding my hand and comforting me. He sat and watched the TV.
Yeah. And you stayed with him. What was he watching?
Well, my twin girls are my middle child, and I was not very far along. And my doctor was on vacation, so I had a substitute doctor. And he said, "You're going to have twins." And I thought, "You're a substitute. What do you know?" So I never even told Abner until just a very few weeks before they were born. Of course, by that time, my own doctor was back. But it's like in school. If you got a substitute, you don't pay a lot of attention.
Yeah.
So in those days, at Marn Frank, if you let them know X number of weeks ahead and you bought a layette, a full layette, they would give you another one free. But because I didn't believe it, I didn't buy it, and I didn't get anything free.
You were ready.
Yeah.
You want to pass the mic down to Susan? Or I can come. Yeah.
I remember being amazed. I'd never been to a baby shower before, I don't think. But what really struck me was they weren't just giving me the things you need for a baby. They were sharing their experience and their preferences, things that they had had experience with and were passing on to me. That was really moving.
Sorry. One of the things that absolutely confuses Elen beyond belief is American baby showers. And to be fair, you have to understand, she's an engineer, right? So things need to make sense. And the thing she doesn't understand is, for example, when my sister had Emmy, right? Sean and Jules have never hurt for money. They've both been gainfully employed. Jules is a nurse, Sean's an engineer, right? They got plenty of cash. So she was totally confused why you would throw a party where everybody else gives you the things that you need for having a baby. She was like, wouldn't you buy that yourself? Right? Why would you rely on other people? And of course, I tried to explain to her, well, keep in mind, the context for this is that, okay, they can buy the things they need, but generally this is all about the village raising the child and contributing, et cetera, et cetera. She gets that, but then she's like, but then why is she having two baby showers? It's like, well, one's for her friends, one's for her family. She's like, but they're both giving her stuff. Anyways.
And you need more than one of a lot of things.
And you need more than one of a lot
and
of
those
things.
Newborn clothes are almost like wear once and they're too small. So
and they cost $50 for something this big. I couldn't believe that. Yeah. Which is the great thing is though, is that's what baby showers are for too, is getting rid of your baby clothes to whoever is gonna need it next. Yeah. Be a village thing. Yeah.
That's why I always, whenever I went to a baby shower, I always checked
Yeah. The stuff they don't know they need yet, but are gonna want it a lot quicker than they think. Yeah. They go from this to this pretty quick, don't they? Yeah. Why even get them clothes? That's why swaddling clothes were so great. You just basically you have a one size fits all burrito. Why worry about getting them pants and t-shirts and all that jazz? Ancient peoples are smart, man. I wonder, baby showers feel to me like something that started out differently and kind of morphed into what it is now. But I suspect, and I don't know if anybody's got any historical knowledge here. I suspect that kind of thing is ancient. The sharing what you have to help the new mom. The specific baby shower things where you're eating cupcakes with diapers on them or whatever. I don't know. That's ancient Greece. Yeah. That tracks.
When we had Derek, I think it was just at the very beginning of childbirth preparation classes.
Yeah.
And Lamaze was the pioneer in that. And so I went into it not ignorant of what it all would be about. What really impressed me was Jim, who's very laconic, had learned how to, okay, it's a contraction, let's time it, and they say, you're about halfway through, and he pattered through each contraction. It was truly amazing. Oh.
Oh, wow. Oh,
That's
wow.
That's right. That was before they allowed the fathers to be in the room.
Sure, yeah. How many of you were, for the men in here, how many of you were present for the birth of children? Yeah, majority. Yeah. How was that experience? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. She told you why you wanted to be in that room. Yes, exactly. Yeah. How was that? Yeah. 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 How many did anybody have the experience where like your wife turned to you and was like, you did this to me? No. It's a real thing. Yeah. 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 Holy cow. Yeah. But it's funny though, like in that, it's not really crisis, but that crisis thinking, what things your brain jumps onto.
So the childbirth preparation itself, I think, was 8 weeks. And Jim learned how to coach, and I learned how to breathe. But we also attended a one-session class on newborns and learned how to do the football hold.
Yeah.
And that's all I remember from that.
Oh, I got a kick out of Bishop Lori's story about how her husband never learned to support the head. I had worship classes with Mons Teg. He was from Belgium or something like this, and he literally he had realistic dolls that you had to learn to support the head, and so we practiced. We baptized plastic infants as part of it, holding the head like this, doing that. You know what I do? I say to the parents, "You're holding them." I could do it if I had to, though, right?
That holding the head doesn't always work. I was
Yeah. Oh no. And then the Lion King music cues, right? At least he landed in the font. It could have been a whole lot worse, right? That's wonderful. Like a luge, just. That's wonderful. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Linda.
We had a pastor who would, and he was filling in for. We were changing pastors at that point, and he was a sub. He was an old sub, and he knew what he was doing. But he would always come up to do the baptism, and he would be there at the font. And the first thing he would do is he'd whoosh his hand through like this and just throw it.
Sure.
And just throw it. And that was so cool because we're all washed with the same
Yep.
baptism, and he would just. People got smart after a while. After
Yeah.
the first one, you kind of.
It's like
You sat back a little bit.
being at a Gallagher show. Is that reference track with anybody? Okay, thank you, Andy. That's the guy that like smashes watermelons on stage? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Offers plastic sheets to the front row. You know, I've had a pretty good track record. I haven't dropped any babies, but I default to letting and a lot of it's kind of reading the parents too. You know, like if I reach for the child and the mom gets a look of panic in her eyes, I'm like, you hold him. It's you know. I'm trying to think. Honestly, all the baptisms that I've done have been pretty standard. But you know, like we had some cool ones. Like remember when George Jenks got baptized? Yeah, and what did I ask him? I asked him a question. He was just like, yes. he was very confident in his response. So, so the preparations part of getting ready for a kid to show up is having the stuff, right? That's where the showers come in handy. When we adopted our first dog, so this was during COVID, right? So it was just like 4 months after everything shut down. The whole puppy process was really messed up because normally when you go adopt a dog from the Humane Society, you walk in, you tour all the kennels, whatever, you pick one out, go home. In this case, we couldn't go in, so everything was by phone call. We had applied on the website, and there was a litter of 6 puppies was the litter that Madeline was from, and I applied for all of them because they were going like hotcakes, right? If you wanted a puppy, and it was during COVID, everybody was adopting, was getting a dog. It was tough. They told you, they said, if you end up being on the call list, we're going to call you once. If you don't answer the phone, we're going to call the next person on the list. So of course I was in the grocery store on a Monday, and I got a call. And I'm like, and I didn't recognize the number, but I'm like, it could be. And they also told you, save our number in your phone so that you recognize it when we call. I got lucky. And I'm in the grocery store, and they're like, well, we've got congratulations, blah, blah, blah. We've got 2 puppies that you applied for. Which one do you want? And I'm like, well, they gave them stupid names. I don't remember what their names were. They're like, one is White and Brindle, the other's Brindle and White. Like okay, that's helpful. They're like, one's got brown eyes, one's got blue eyes. I was like, I'll take the one with brown eyes, and that was Madeline, right? But so here's the funny thing is I called Alen right away. I was super excited. Hey, we got a puppy, great. You immediately set up a date to go to the Humane Society. I knew that we were going there to pick up the puppy. Alen thought we were going there to assess the puppy. Right? So we get to the Humane Society, and of course, me being me, I hadn't bought anything yet. I was like, we'll figure it out, And we get there, and you go into a room with just you, and they let the little dog run around, and oh yeah, it's cute. Oh, it's a puppy, and you're doing the things, hoping that they like you and don't run away afraid, whatever. So we get done. The person from the Humane Society is like, okay, you guys ready to go? I'm like, yep. And then Len gets this look of panic in her eyes, like, what do you mean are we ready to go? She's like, I'm like, well, we're going to adopt her, right? And she's like, are we? I was like, are we? And so it was this thing of where she, in the moment, was like, I guess we're going home with this dog. But then she's the person that normally is well prepared for everything. And she's like, we have nothing, Jesse. I'm like, but there's a store here. So we ended up, dropping way too much money, buying all the stuff that we didn't need. Like we paid, I don't remember how much money for those pee pads that go on the floor. We never used a single one of them, all that stuff. But one of the things that I realized is there's a difference between being, prepared and being prepared, right? Is that you can have the stuff, but when you get into the moment, are you ready, right? Are you ready? Was that something that you experienced with kids? Yes, absolutely. She knew my intent. I don't think she realized that the Humane Society would go along with my intent. I think was the issue. Holy Moses. Oh my gosh. We're going to have to bill you for this room. So But that's exactly it, right? That's exactly what I wonder about. Is that like I have done everything I can do, including mental preparation. Like you think you've mentally prepared, but then there's that moment where, to use it, where the rubber hits the road, where it's like, oh, like I actually have to do this, right? Like we're not in the theoretical phase anymore. I have a real human being that has been entrusted to me, and I have to make sure that they live and thrive and all that.
So we have 3 kids, and when our first one was born, we had the exact same experience. And Linda and I were living down in Bakersfield, California. We didn't have any family around. So we brought this little infant home, like 3 days old or something like that. And we're looking at him and saying, oh, what are we supposed to do with this guy? And then maybe the next day, Linda's mom flew down. And Linda's mom and I have always had a good relationship. But I'll tell you what, we never had a better day than the day she walked in that door and took charge of that baby. And it was just great.
We were talking about how it takes a village, though. Isn't that amazing? And this is one of the things I don't want to speak like I know, but I wonder if that kind of thing is disappearing, right? Where, as a new parent, you're not expected to have it all figured out, right?
Yeah.
That's where your mom comes in. That's where your grandma comes in, or your dad or your grandpa. I mean, we don't want to just lay it at women's feet, but like that. You talk about like the generational. You've got a deep bench behind you. I wonder if that's something that is less present.
As far as not knowing, even now when my children tell me I don't get it. I say, I'm new at this. I've never done this before.
Right?
Even at 75.
This is my first time being a human being.
This.
Right? Why do you expect me to have all these things figured out? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. But this is, well, okay, but this is interesting. Did Bishop Laurie talk about this, or am I just imagining this? But somebody said something, I think it was in Bishop's sermon, is that Joseph probably wasn't alone. There was somebody there. There had to have been. It was from our Bible study on Tuesday. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Or they called a midwife, or whoever did that thing in the village came by. But even so, it doesn't diminish from Joseph's experience of considering the backstory, considering that they get off the donkey, they don't have a bed, they're in a cave, right? Because it's literally what it is. Okay, are we prepared? Are we ready for this? But great segue, by the way. This is what Advent is. That, right? We read all these texts about John the Baptist. Some of it's like the doom and gloom, Jesus coming out of the temple stuff. But by and large, it is simply celebrating the birth of a child. Right? It's that simple. And at the same time, that's our metaphor for what this is about, is preparation. But what's fascinating for me is how we have all just articulated, we prepare the best we can, but there's a certain thing that you can never be prepared for. And we got a bunch of cool stuff out of this too, right? Like you get there, like Jamie's articulating, you're in the car, and somebody hands you the baby and says, "You're on your own now," right? You have to leave the hospital. We need this bed for somebody else. Good luck. And and it feels like, I don't know, maybe jumping off a cliff. I don't want to project my metaphors on somebody else. There's that aspect of it, but then there's also, well, you're not alone, right? You've got friends, you've got family, you've got people that are there to help you with that. And yet this is what Advent is preparing for the baby to show up, right? And we're all party to that. It's interesting. Was that an echo, or did somebody want to say something? So we were talking, very briefly last week, I was just throwing some trivia down at the end. So Advent, theoretically, this is, by the way, tracing down church traditions is tough, right? Because they a lot of times feel like they just come out of nowhere. And the best we can do is kind of point to a century and or a geographical region that we think it comes out of. Advent theoretically comes out of the French area of Tours, Tours. A guy named Saint Martin was the bishop, and he decided that his monks would fast as preparation for Christmas, which, let's be fair, is kind of the default for any kind of religious thing. Like, let's make the monks fast. That'll take care of it. But over the course of the next 1,000 years, it evolves into something resembling what we do today. But one of the biggest evolutions in how we think about Advent actually comes about with the Protestant Reformation. For the old church tradition, for Catholicism, Advent was kind of a Lent 2.0, right? Like, Lent is all about piety. You fast to get closer to God. And so Advent was about, getting closer to God in preparation for Jesus showing up, right? And maybe there was a little bit more of an emphasis on the second coming than the first. Because that's also one of the interesting things about Advent, is that we're not just preparing for the baby to be born, we're preparing for the rebirth of Jesus, the coming back. And it's kind of the same, we use the phrase the now and the not yet. It's kind of the same thing in a lot of ways. Because even though we know that Jesus isn't the knight riding in on the white horse with a sword, I think that's still kind of our expectations for when we think about the second coming. But have you ever considered that Jesus might show up as a baby again, right? That Jesus is going to be rebirthed into our world. And how does that change what we're preparing for, right? We're not preparing for the gates to be battered down by, Jesus's triumphant army. We're preparing to take care of a vulnerable human being, right? How does that change, what we think about? One of the things that terrifies me about Advent is that, it's the same feeling of like sitting in the car with a baby, having to go home, is the idea of like we're being entrusted with that responsibility. Like we're preparing for Jesus to arrive, and that is a thing of trust, like we going into Christmas are being entrusted with literally bearing the Christ child, and the responsibility and the power that comes with that as well too. This is one of the things that I'll end up, preaching about this morning, but we talk about God being good, right? And not as an adjective, but as a noun, right? Like God isn't good as a modifier. God is goodness, right? What does it mean that we're entrusted with that, right? We carry that. And this is, as much as I kind of like joke about our Protestant traditions, this is one of the things that is, one of the reasons why I'm a Protestant and not a Catholic, is the emphasis on the trust that's put into the hands of everybody. Trust to hold Scripture, right? In fact, Luther described Scripture as the cradle which holds the Christ child, insofar as that the Bible is not God, but God is found in the Bible, is that, it carries God, and we're entrusted with that, right? We don't just put it in the hands of the elite and rely on them to disseminate whatever nuggets of knowledge we're supposed to know, that we're actually given that into our hands and say, okay, you take care of this now. But, what if we thought about Scripture that way too, is that Scripture is the baby, right? It's not a weapon, it's a child, right? It's something that has life, it's life-bringing, it's good, it's goodness. How would that change how we interact, or how we think about that? I don't know.
I'm not sure who the pastor was, maybe Pastor Charles. But anyway, she was in high school. And if you've ever seen them, these oval troughs that they have for horses and cows, this was a brand new one. And you know where the door is out, right from the pulpit. And there it was, full of water. And you had to go through a certain part of the service before you got to it. And then she stepped into the water to be baptized.
Yeah.
And it was so cold, she said she'd never do it again. But it certainly put a picture in my mind.
Was that Megan's daughter? Yes.
Yeah.
She went to Montana State. Her name is Stephanie. Steph, yes. I wasn't present for that, but I have heard that story over and over again. Yeah, it was literally a horse trough or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah, that was out in the porch. She should have gotten the sauna first, right? Yeah. That's so... Oh, this is great. But yeah, okay, so let's sticking in with the metaphor of childbearing and Advent Christmas. I mean, the birthing of the baby is kind of, I was about to say the easy part. It is not the easy part. But that's kind of like the one and done part, right? And then you're entrusted with this human being that you have to take care of. Absolutely. I deserved it. I absolutely deserved it at certain... Was I bad at 13? Probably. Yeah. I mean, I was 13 and Sean was 12. I mean, at some point they had two 13-year-olds in the house. So that, yeah. well, we had an exchange student from Norway, Susanna, and she was, I think, 17 or 18. So imagine being I think I was 12 at the time, a 12-year-old boy with a very attractive blonde 18-year-old Norwegian that was, man, awkward. And the worst part is that because Susanna was staying with us, Sean and I had to share a room, and we fought every night for like the first 2 months that Susanna was there. It's like, oh my God, my poor parents. Anyways. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing too, is that how much of it, do you kind of make up on the go, right? You do the best with what you got. But you're not just doing random things though, are you? Right? There is something behind that, priorities, values, whatever, that is kind of like, not dictating, but determining what you're going to do. Like what, we got a few minutes. What were your priorities? Or did you even think of it that clearly? What were, when you were like, your kid hits 4 or 5 or whatever, and they're walking and talking and all that stuff. Do you remember thinking like, I just want to make sure that they are or have X safe? Was that a priority for most? I would imagine, I hope. Safe, especially with the walking, toddling, falling over. No, they're zooming around like little Zamboni machines. Yeah. 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 I'm fully with you on that. Yeah, like knowing the purpose behind what you're doing, and not just the purpose, not like just like the practical aspect of it, like I'm doing this so that this will happen, but like I'm doing this because this is my value. This is this is my truth. To call back to a few weeks ago. Do the kids ever challenge that? Make you second guess that?
I also had the experience of being a military wife during Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And we had Jennifer.
Yep.
And when she was 6 months old, he went overseas for a year. So I had the experience.
To go party with his buddies.
Yeah, right. I had the experience of raising her and dealing with all of these things. Thank God I had Carolyn.
Yeah.
And then to see him come back and have to learn again how to be a father.
Yeah.
And how he had to learn to accept the fact she's not 6 months old anymore. She's a year and a half. And so she's independent. I mean, she's getting independent.
Absolutely.
And he's still wanting to treat her like she's 6 months
Yeah,
old.
absolutely. I have to laugh. We have some friends that just got divorced. And you know how it's like, it's the friends you never thought would get divorced, that type of thing. And they have a child that is the same age as Emmy, like a month apart. And obviously it was a hard decision. But a lot of it was motivated by mom was the parent, and dad thought that just earning the money was enough, and that was one of the reasons. I mean, it's never one reason. It's always 15. But one of the heartbreaking moments for him was when his son came to visit, and then he told his mom, but it's not special anymore, because he only got to see his dad so much that it was always a special thing, and now it's a normal thing. So talk about coming back and expecting the child to be there. But this is what I was thinking about. We're all talking about this experience, and every one of us can name who was in our corner, who were the people that were supporting us. And this is the thing that I think we often mess up when we talk about, Advent, but just kind of like our faith in general, is that we tend to focus on the individual aspect of it. I would encourage us to always swing the other direction, is that always think of it as the communal. Like, I'm not preparing for Advent, we're preparing. Our community, this community, the bigger community. And the thing that we often get to this time of year too is that Advent isn't, we talk about the now and the not yet. This is the preparation for something that already happened, something that is going to happen, and then something that is happening, right? Like, is God being birthed into our world? Yeah, right? In fact, that's how Jesus articulates the kingdom, is that, when you see these things happening, you will know that the kingdom has come near, right? It's happening now. So it's this thing that transcends time. So we're not just preparing for the thing that will happen. You're doing the thing where you're trying to play catch up, right? Where you didn't know you needed to be prepared for it, so you re-prepare, if that's a word. It's like, this is one of the things that, and again, not to compare raising dogs with raising children, although I imagine there's a little bit of crossover there. But the things I didn't know that I needed to know until it was too late, and then you're playing catch up, trying to figure out. When Madeline was so easy, and then Macaron has a bunch of behavioral stuff. And I didn't know that I needed to know that stuff. And then now people are like, oh, you do such a good job with them. I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of error. Trial, yes, but mostly error. We figured out what we didn't know, and we played catch up because I want to make sure that this, living, feeling, breathing, joy experiencing creation of God, is safe, right? It knows that they're loved, gets to experience the world, No, it is not. And you think, how many of you thought that, the first kid, you were set, and then the second kid, was way different? Yeah. And how many of you had one and were like, and that's why we're not having number two? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, amen, sister. Yeah. I'm going to call you up during the sermon. No, I'm joking. I'm tempted because this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Is being good is being you, But and I have to laugh. I love my wife. So when Julianne was pregnant with Emmy, Hélène gave her this book. You might have read it, Raising Bébé, B-E-B-E in French. It's a child rearing from the perspective of a French mother and how it differs from what we do in the U.S., which French people in general have opinions on, right? Different opinions, okay? And she gave this book to Julianne, I think expecting that Julianne would read it and be like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to raise my daughter. I don't think Julianne ever read it. And Hélène was very frustrated. And I was like, Hélène, just think about it for a second here. Like you didn't say anything to her directly, but you basically handed her a French manual on child rearing and expected her to take notes. Like, come on. Anyways, God bless her. But I'm so glad that I don't have to experience that. But people, it's not mansplaining. It's a tangent to it of like, let me tell you what it's like to have a child. And you're like, no, I'm having one. Like, I'm literally doing it, and it's going to be different than how you did it. But I love that metaphor too. Like, that's what faith is. That's what this experience is about, is that it is individual and unique to each of us. But on the flip side of it, what's powerful about that is that diversity of experience is what paints the whole picture, Like, we, each of us experience God in a different and unique way, but when we gather all of us together here, experiencing God in our different and unique way, we have a better picture, we have a better image of God. We are the imago Dei, right? So I'm the image of Christ, but more like we're an image of Christ, an image of Christ, but we're not the whole image. We're like one pixel in the bigger picture, but you need all the pixels, right, to paint the picture. That metaphor, I mixed metaphors there. I was mixing analog and digital, and are we talking oil or acrylic, Jesse? Anyways, thank you. Wonderful conversation today. So reminder, quick couple of announcements. Nothing next week. Nothing the 29th. I will announce, but we will probably do something the first Sunday in January. 29th is going to be Blue Christmas, which if you haven't worshipped with us for that before, it is effectively celebrating, remembering the people that aren't with us at the Christmas table, people that have passed, or, just how many of us find ourselves wishing that we could be with family, but distance, and all the things that keep us apart. So that's going to be 29th, 24th at 5 p.m. is our Christmas Eve service. So there's no Christmas Day service. Yeah. Which, and by the way, just, a piece on that. If you ever want to do that, it's not that I don't want to do it, but when we have a Christmas Eve service with 200 odd folks and a Christmas Day service with 10 folks and 8 of them were there the night before, not exactly valuable. But if there's a need in this community for something like that, just let me know and I'll make it happen, but I need to know that there's a desire for a Christmas Day service. So. Okay, thanks folks. Happy Advent. See you in worship.